Opuntia is a genus in the cactus family, Cactaceae. The most common culinary species is the Indian fig Opuntia. Most culinary uses of the term prickly pear refer to this species. Prickly pears are also known as tuna or nopal from the Nahuatl word nōpalli for the pads, or nostle, from the Nahuatl word nōchtli for the fruit. Or paddle cactus. The genus is named for the ancient Greek city of Opus, where, according to Theophrastus, an edible plant grew which could be propagated by rooting its leaves. Description: prickly pears typically grew with flat, rounded cladodes armed with two kinds of spines. Large, smooth, fixed spines and small, hair-like prickles called glochids, that easily penetrate skin and detach from the plant. Many types of prickly pears grow into dense, tangled structures. Like all true cactus species, prickly pears are native only to the Americas, but they have been introduced to other parts of the globe. Prickly pear species are found in abundance in Mexico, especially in the central and western regions, and in the Caribbean islands. In the United States, prickly pears are native to many areas of the arid western United States, including the lower elevations of the Rocky Mountains, where species such as Opuntia fiacantha and Opuntia polyacantha become dominant, and especially in the desert southwest. Prickly pear cactus is also native to the dry sandhills and sand dunes of the east coast from Florida to Connecticut Long Island. Further north, Opuntia occurs in isolated areas from the southern Great Lakes to southern Ontario. Opuntia is also a prominent feature of the flora at Illinois Beach State Park, in Winthrop Harbor, Illinois, north of Chicago, and of Indiana Dunes State Park southeast of Chicago. In the Galapagos Islands, 6 different species are found: O. echios, O. galapagua, O. hieri, O. insularis, O. saxicola, and O. megasperma. These species are divided into 14 different varieties. Most of these are confined to one or a few islands. For this reason, they have been described as an excellent example of adaptive radiation. On the whole, islands with tall, trunked varieties of giant tortoises, and islands lacking tortoises have low or prostrate forms of Opuntia. The first introduction of prickly pears into Australia can be definitely ascribed to Governor Phillip and the earliest colonists in 1788. Brought from Brazil to Sydney, they remained in Sydney, New South Wales, where they were rediscovered in a farmer's garden in 1839. The farmer's wife gave cuttings to neighbours and friends, who planted it not only in their gardens, but also as hedgerows. So began the Australian invasion that caused major ecological damage in the eastern states. They are also found in the Mediterranean region of northern Africa, especially in Tunisia, where they grow all over the countryside, and southern Europe, especially on Malta, where they grow all over the islands, in the southeast of Spain, and can be found in enormous numbers in parts of South Africa, where it was introduced from South America. Opuntia species are the most cold-tolerant of the lowland cacti, extending into western and southern Canada. One subspecies, O. fragilis var. fragilis, has been found growing along the Beaton River in central British Columbia, southwest of Cecil Lake at 56°17' unregistered trademark N latitude and 120°39' unregistered trademark W longitude. Prickly pears also produce a fruit, commonly eaten in Mexico, known as tuna. It also is used to make aguas frescas. The fruit can be red, wine red, green, or yellow-orange. Charles Darwin was the first to note that these cacti have thymotactic anthers. When the anthers are touched, they curl over, depositing their pollen. This movement can be seen by gently poking the anthers of an open Opuntia flower. The same trait has evolved convergently in other cacti. Chollas. Chollas, now recognized to belong into the rather distinct genus Cylindropuntia, are distinguished by having cylindrical, rather than flattened, stem segments with the large barbed spines. The stem joints of several species, notably the jumping cholla, are very brittle on young stems, readily breaking off when the barbed spines stick to clothing or animal fur as a method of vegetative reproduction. The barbed spines can remain embedded in the skin, causing discomfort and sometimes injury. Growth, taxonomy. When Carl Linnaeus published Species Plantrum in 1753 the starting point for modern botanical nomenclature he placed all the species of cactus known to him in one genus, Cactus. In 1754, the Scottish botanist Philip Miller divided cacti into several genera, including Opuntia. He distinguished the genus largely on the form of its flowers and fruits. Selected species. Opuntia hybridizes readily between species. This can make classification difficult. Also, not all species listed here may actually belong in this genus. Opuntia aciculata chenille prickly pear, old man's whiskers, cowboy unregistered trademark red whiskers, Opuntia anacantha, Opuntia atrispina, Opuntia oberry, Opuntia aurantiaca, Opuntia basilaris beaver tail cactus, Opuntia boldingia, Opuntia chaffee, Opuntia chlorotica pancake prickly pear. Native to southwest USA and the Sonoran and Mojave deserts, Opuntia clavata, Opuntia coccinellifera, Opuntia comunguensis, Opuntia curvuspina, Opuntia decumana, Opuntia decumbens nopal decabra, Opuntia dejecta, Opuntia echinocarpa, Opuntia echios, Opuntia echios var. Gigantea Galapagos prickly pear, Galapagos Islands. Opuntia elata, Opuntia elatio mill. Eurosin. Obergeriana, Opuntia angelmania engemans prickly pear, cow's tongue prickly pear, desert prickly pear, discus prickly pear, Texas prickly pear, calico cactus, Opuntia erinacea, Opuntia exaltata, Opuntia excelsa, Opuntia ficus barbarica, Opuntia ficus-indica Indian fig Opuntia, Opuntia fragilis little prickly pear, brittle cactus, found in the Great Plains and as far west as British Columbia, Opuntia galapagua, Opuntia gosliniana violet prickly pear, Opuntia gosliniana var. Santa Rita Santa Rita prickly pear. Opuntia hieri, Opuntia hicknii, Opuntia hemifusa eastern prickly pear, Opuntia hypsocantha, Opuntia inamima shum. Keeper Opuntia insularis, Opuntia invicta, Opuntia jamacensis, Opuntia livis, Opuntia lysiacantha, Opuntia leucotrica arborescent prickly pear, Aram's beard cactus, Semaphore cactus, Duraznillo blanco, Nopal blanco, Opuntia liontimea cautlum prickly pear, Opuntia literalis coastal prickly pear, sprawling prickly pear, Opuntia longispina, Opuntia macrocentral black spine prickly pear, purple prickly pear, found in southwest USA and northern Mexico, Opuntia macroesa plains prickly pear, found throughout the Great Plains except for the northernmost areas, and extending sporadically eastward as far as Kentucky, sin. O Letocarpa mackinson, O tianwispina eingem, O tortospina eingem. And Bigelow, Opuntia matudea xoconossal, Opuntia muldonandensis, Opuntia maxima, Opuntia megacantha, Opuntia megahesa, Opuntia microdis bunny ears cactus, polka dot cactus, Opuntia monicantha common prickly pear, Opuntia auricola, Opuntia ovata, Opuntia paraguayensis, Opuntia fiacantha tulip prickly pear, includes plateau prickly pear, brown spine prickly pear, Mojave prickly pear, kingman prickly pear, Opuntia pincavia pancavas prickly pear, Opuntia polyacantha panhandle prickly pear, found in the Great Plains, Great Basin, Mojave Desert, Colorado Plateau, and the Rocky Mountains, sin. O rhodantha shum. Opuntia polyacantha var. Arenaria. Opuntia pubescens, Opuntia pusilla creeping cactus, sin. O Drummondii graham, Opuntia ketensis red buttons Opuntia, Opuntia rastrera, Opuntia repens, Opuntia robusta, Opuntia rufta, Opuntia schumania, Opuntia sorenza, Opuntia stenopetala, Opuntia streptocantha, Opuntia stricta erect prickly pear, spineless prickly pear, Opuntia subulata found in South America, Opuntia sulfurea, Opuntia taylori, Opuntia tihuantepecana nopal decabolo, Opuntia tomentosa Euro-Woolligoid prickly pear, Opuntia triacantha, Opuntia tuna, Opuntia velutina, Opuntia violacea. Formerly an Opuntia, Ostrocylindropuntia, Breciliopuntia, Corynopuntia, Cylindropuntia, Disocactus phylanthoides, Micropuntia, Mechaliopuntia. Ecology, Opuntia spreads into large clonal colonies, which contributes to its being considered a noxious weed in some places. Prickly pears were originally imported into Australia in the 18th century for gardens, and were later used as a natural agricultural fencing and in an attempt to establish a cochineal dye industry. They quickly became a widespread invasive weed, eventually converting 101,000 sqa of farming land into an impenetrable green jungle of prickly pear, in places 20 ft high. Scores of farmers were driven off their land by what they called the Green Hell. Their abandoned homes were crushed under the cactus growth, which advanced at a rate of 1 million acres per year. In 1919, the Australian federal government established the Commonwealth Prickly Pear Board to coordinate efforts with state governments to eradicate the weed. Early attempts at mechanical removal and poisonous chemicals failed, so in a last resort, biological control was attempted. The moth Cactoblastis cactorum, from South America, the larvae of which eat prickly pear, was introduced in 1925 and rapidly reduced the cactus population. The son of the noted entomologist Frederick Parkhurst Dodd, Alan Dodd, was a leading official in combating the prickly pear menace. A memorial hall in Chinchilla commemorates the moth. The same moth, introduced accidentally further north of its native range into southern North America, is causing serious damage to some native species in that area. Other animals that eat Opuntia include the prickly pear island snail and Cyclura rock iguanas. The fruit are relished by many aridland animals, chiefly birds, which thus help distribute the seeds. Opuntia pathogens include the sac fungus Colletotrichum cocodes and salmon's Opuntia virus. The ant Chromatogasta opuntii and the spider Therigion Opuntia are named for their association with prickly pear cacti. Cultivation: Volterilla in Mexico is the largest producer of Opuntia products. The Expo Nopal Expo, featuring a wide range of products, is held annually in February. Uses: as food. Edible varieties, see, list of edible cactus. Nutrient content, Opuntia has modest content of essential nutrients as assessed by the amount of daily value provided in a 100 g portion, with only dietary fiber, vitamin C and the dietary mineral, magnesium having significant content. Regional food uses: the fruit of prickly pears, commonly called cactus fruit, cactus fig, Indian fig or tuna in Spanish, is edible, although it must be peeled carefully to remove the small spines on the outer skin before consumption. If the outer layer is not properly removed, glochids can be ingested, causing discomfort of the throat, lips, and tongue, as the small spines are easily lodged in the skin. Native Americans, like the tequesta, would roll the fruit around in a suitable medium to sound off the glochids. Alternatively, rotating the fruit in the flame of a campfire or torch has been used to remove the glochids. Today, parthenocarpic cultivars are also available. Cactus figs are often used to make candy, jelly, or drinks. The prickly pear fruit is also used as the main ingredient of a popular Christmas beverage in the British Virgin Islands, called Miss Blyden. Opuntia ficus-indica has been introduced to Europe, and flourishes in areas with a suitable climate, such as the south of France, southern Italy, Sicily, and Sardinia, along the Struma River in Bulgaria, in southern Portugal and Madeira, Andalusia, Spain. In Greece, it grows in such places as the Peloponnese region, Ionian Islands, or Crete, and its figs are known as Franosica or Pavlosica, depending on the region. In Albania, they are called figdeti, translated as sea figs, and are present in the southwest shore. The figs are also grown in Cyprus, where they are known as papoutsica or babutsa. The prickly pear also grows widely on the islands of Malta, where it is enjoyed by the Maltese as a typical summer fruit, as well as being used to make the popular liqueur known as bajtra. In Egypt, it is known as atin shirki. The prickly pear is so commonly found in the Maltese Islands, It is often used as a dividing wall between many of Malta's characteristic terraced fields in place of the usual rubble walls. The prickly pear was introduced to Eritrea during the period of Italian colonization between 1890 and 1940. It is locally known there as bells and is abundant during the late summer and early autumn. The bells from the holy monastery of Debre Bizan is said to be particularly sweet and juicy. In Libya, it is a popular summer fruit and called by the locals Hindi, which literally means Indian. In Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and other parts of the Middle East, prickly pears of the yellow and orange varieties are grown by the side of farms, beside railway tracks and otherwise non-cultivable land. It is sold in summer by street vendors, and is considered a refreshing fruit for that season. Tunji is the local St. Helenian name for cactus pears. The plants were originally brought to the island by the colonial ivory traders from East Africa in the 1850s. Tunji cactus now grows wild in the dry coastal regions of the island. Three principal cultivars of Tunji grow on the island, the English with yellow fruit, the Madeira with large red fruit, and the small, firm spiny red. The young stem segments, usually called nopales, are also edible in most species of Opuntia. They are commonly used in Mexican cuisine in dishes such as huevos con nopales, or tacos de nopales. Nopales are also an important ingredient in New Mexican cuisine. Phytochemicals and folk medicine. Opuntia contains a range of phytochemicals in variable quantities, such as polyphenols, dietary minerals and betalains. Identified compounds that may have biological activity include gallic acid, vanillic acid and catechins, as examples. The Sicilian prickly pear contains betalain, betanin, and indicaxanthin, with highest levels in their fruits. In Mexican folk medicine, its pulp and juice are considered treatments for wounds and inflammation of the digestive and urinary tracts. As an intoxicant, Mexican natives have used the food for thousands of years, to make colange, an alcoholic drink. At least 2 commercially important distilled spirits are produced from Opuntia fruit. In Malta, the pink herbal Bajtra liqueur is made from Opuntia. A St. Helenian distillery produces the clear, more potent Tunji spirit from Indian fig Opuntia CV. English and Madeira. Opuntia is also added sometimes to the entheogenic drink ayahuasca. Psychoactive compounds and derivatives thereof have been confirmed in some species. These include 3,4-DMPEA, 4-hydroxy3, 5-DMPEA, and mescaline. In dye production, Dactylopus coccus is a scale insect from which cochineal dye is derived. D. coccus itself is native to tropical and subtropical South America and Mexico. This insect, a primarily sessile parasite, lives on cacti from the genus Opuntia, feeding on moisture and nutrients in the cactus sap. The insect produces carminic acid, which deters predation by other insects. The carminic acid can be extracted from the insect's body and eggs to make the red dye. Cochineal is used primarily as a red food coloring and for cosmetics. The cochineal dye was used by the Aztec and Maya peoples of Central and North America. Produced almost exclusively in Oaxaca, Mexico, by indigenous producers, cochineal became Mexico's second most valued export after silver. The dye stuff was consumed throughout Europe, and was so highly valued, its price was regularly quoted on the London and Amsterdam commodity exchanges. Now, the highest production of cochineal is by Peru, the Canary Islands, and Chile. Current health concerns over artificial food additives have renewed the popularity of cochineal dyes, and the increased demand is making cultivation of the insect an attractive opportunity in other regions, such as in Mexico, where cochineal production had declined again owing to the numerous natural enemies of the scale insect. Apart from cochineal, the red dye betanin can be extracted from some Opuntia plants themselves. For earthen walls, fluid extracted from Opuntia pads and stems, especially O. ficus-indica, is one of the most commonly used additives in earthen plaster. For water treatment, the flesh of the cactus has been found to purify water. a project at the University of South Florida is investigating its potential for low-cost, large-scale water purification. In culture, the coat of arms of Mexico depicts a Mexican golden eagle, perched upon an Opuntia cactus, holding a rattlesnake. According to the official history of Mexico, the coat of arms is inspired by an Aztec legend regarding the founding of Tenochtitlan. The Aztecs, then a nomadic tribe, were wandering throughout Mexico in search of a divine sign to indicate the precise spot upon which they were to build their capital. Their god Huitzilopochtli had commanded them to find an eagle devouring a snake, perched atop a cactus that grew on a rock submerged in a lake. After 200 years of wandering, they found the promised sign on a small island in the swampy Lake Texcoco. There they founded their new capital, Tenochtitlan. The cactus, full of fruits, is the symbol for the island of Tenochtitlan. The 1975–1988 version of the coat of arms of Malta also featured a prickly pear. The prickly pear cactus ironically holds significance in both Palestinian and Israeli societies. In Arabic, the cactus is called Omicron ol terahertz plus or minus a to the first pound ubar. The related term sabr also translates to patience, or tenacity. The concept of sabr features prominently in the nonviolent resistance movement to Israeli military occupation. The prickly pear cactus represents the Palestinian struggle for freedom in both oral history and literature. Renowned Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish frequently uses the prickly pear cactus as a symbol of the Palestinian people in his work. Author Nadia Taisir Dabar compares the resilience of the cactus to that of the Palestinian people, writing, "The idea is that, even in an arid or harsh climate or environment, the Palestinians managed to go on living and surviving against all odds." The famous cartoon character Handala, created by Palestinian cartoonist Naji Salim al-Ali, takes his name from the prickly pear cactus, as Handala is also another word for cactus in Palestinian culture. Handala is typically depicted with his back to the viewer. Legend has it that he will only show his face once the Palestinians are free. The image of Handala was later adopted by the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. In Israel, the cactus fig is called sabar in Hebrew. This cactus is also the origin of the term sabra used to describe a Jew born in Israel. The allusion is to a thorny, spiky skin on the outside, but a soft, sweet interior, suggesting, though the Israeli sabras are roughened on the outside, they are sweet and sensitive once one gets to know them. The prickly pear cactus has been used for centuries both as a food source and a natural fence that keeps in livestock and marks the boundaries of family lands. They are incredibly resilient and often grow back. The cactus lends its name to a song by British jazz classical group Portico Quartet. The song My Rival, on the album Gaucho by the American jazz pop group Steely Dan, begins with the words, "The wind was driving in my face the smell of prickly pear." In the fall of 1961, Cuba had its troops plant an 8-mile barrier of Opuntia cactus along the northeastern section of the 28-kilometer fence surrounding the Guantanamo Bay Naval Base to stop Cubans from escaping Cuba to take refuge in the United States. This was dubbed the Cactus Curtain, an allusion to Europe's Iron Curtain and the Bamboo Curtain in East Asia. See also: cactus fries, a deep-fried food prepared from Opuntia pads, prickly pears in Australia. References. Bibliography: Bien, Jeff, The Bug That Changed History. Boatman's Quarterly Review 8, 2. HTML full text, http, Musaban-CT, NHACHICF. Effects of Opuntia megacantha on blood glucose and kidney function in streptozootose in diabetic rats. Journal of Ethnopharmacology 69, 247 52 doi, 10.1016 per second 0378-8741, 99, 00123-3. PMIDA 10,722,207 Kotazawa Chez, J. Hugo, Taxonomy, Distribution, Rarity Status and Uses of Canadian Cacti. Hasseltonia 9, 17 €25 Google Scholar PDF Abstract, Fritimoneri AC, Fernandez Harp J. A., de la Riva H., Ariza Andrekana, del Carmen Torres M. Efecto del nopal sobre los lipidos are copyright Ricos la glucemia y el peso corporal, effects of nopal on serum lipids, glycemia and body weight. Archivos de Investigación Q Denmark copyright Ica 14, 117 €25. PMIDA 6314922 Ott, Jonathan, in Ayahuasca Analogues, Pangolin en Orgens. Pittler M.H., Vista J.C., Ernst E. Interventions for Preventing or Treating Alcohol Hangover, Systematic Review of Randomized Controlled Trials. BMJ 331, 1515 €8 doi, 10.1136/BMJ. 331, 7531, 1515. PMCA 1322250. PMIDA 16373736. Portillo M., Liberato in Vicaras G., Ana Lilia, Natural Enemies of Cochineal, Importance in Mexico. Journal of the Professional Association for Cactus Development 3, 43 €49. PDF full text, Rayburn, Keith M.D. Martinez, Ray. Escobedo, Miguel. Wright, Fred and Ferriers, Maria, Glycemic Effects of Various Species of Nopal in Type 2 Diabetes Mellitus. Texas Journal of Rural Health 16, 1, 68 €76. Trinary, Klaus, Visionary Cactus Guide, Opuntia, Sic. Retrieved October 15, 2007. Wise J., McPherson S., Odden M.C., Schlipak M.G. Effect of Opuntia ficus-indica on symptoms of the alcohol hangover. Archives of Internal Medicine 164, 1334 €40 doi, 10.1001/Archint. 164.12.1334. PMIDA 15,226,168 A.